Before we jump into practice today, do want to emphasize to you, especially with the flow that we're going to do tonight, that again, as always, this is choose your own adventure. So if anything that I offer this evening is not something you feel like doing, then by all means, there's no need to go to whatever I'm suggesting, and just find what feels good in your body tonight. So listen to your body and only go to what feels good for you this evening. We are going to start laying down, so if you'd like to find your cozy resting position, we'll get started there. Take your time. Whenever you're ready, find your way to laying down, if that's where you'd like to go this evening. And once you find your cozy resting position, gently draw your eyes closed. And we'll take the next couple of moments to really allow ourselves to arrive here and now. And as you rest on the ground, allow your body to begin to settle in. Allow the body to fall heavily towards the ground. And relax your face as you soften the eyes and the jaw. Begin to feel the breath flow in and out of your body. Allow your mind to settle on the sensation of the breath. Maybe you take some consciously deeper breaths, exaggerating your inhales and exhales, allowing the mind and the body to slow down, allowing yourself to come to the present moment. And if and when your mind begins to think, begins to wander, that's okay. The job of the mind is to think. We're here to direct our focus. So when the mind thinks, notice where it goes. When you become aware, simply come on back to the breath. Continue to feel your inhales and exhales ripple in and out of your body. We're bringing our mind away from all that cognitive processing, thinking tasks, evaluating, and turning it to feeling the body, to processing a sensation within. Allow yourself to feel the full extent of every inhale and exhale, and just notice the difference within the mind when you feel the breath versus when your mind begins to think. What does thinking look like for you? What does feeling the breath look like for you? Is there a difference? Is it similar? Just become aware. Take a couple more really big breaths now, allowing yourself to begin to settle in even deeper to the body, to your practice, arriving here and now. As you do so, can you soften your body even more, truly allowing the weight of your body to fall towards the ground beneath you? Surrender any holding of the body. Let yourself be held. If you'd like to take more time resting and feeling the breath, feel free to do so. Even if you'd like to spend all of practice here, please listen to your body and give it what it needs most tonight. If at any point you'd like to come to this resting posture, again, this is your practice. Please honor your body and what you feel like doing this evening. If and when you're ready to move, follow an inhale to reach your feet towards the front of your mat. Hands reach up behind you towards the back of your room. Full body stretch. On an exhale, gently hug your knees in towards you. Wrap your arms around your legs. And maybe you add just a gentle rock side to side. If you prefer to stay still, feel free to do so as well. Take a couple moments to observe how your body feels tonight. Checking in with major points like the hips, the back, possibly even the neck and shoulders. Just become aware. Stay with your inhales and exhales, keeping your gaze inwards, connecting with the body. From here, we are going to make our way towards seated. So your choice, you can roll over to one side and gently press yourself up, or you can begin to rock up and down the length of your mat, taking a couple rocks and eventually landing in a seated posture. So your choice, whichever way that you'd like to go. Once you get to seated, we'll meet up with the feet flat on the ground and knees bent. The feet will be about hips distance. If you want to step them wider, then feel free to do so. For the first posture of our first flow together, we're going to do a seated version of child's pose. So to do that, you're going to take your arms and wrap them around your legs like you're giving yourself a big hug. You can stay like this or gently allow the head to kind of come towards the knees and drape the neck. You can also stack your arms on the knees and allow your forehead to rest on the forearms. So lots of variations. You can kind of play around with what feels good for you. You'll get a little bit more of a neck release with the hands lower rather than having the arms stacked on the knees. Take a couple big breaths here. Relax the jaw, soften the eyes, allow the shoulders to relax down the back body. Where do you feel your breath in the body? Take a couple moments to just be with the feeling of the breath. Again, maybe you continue to take longer than normal inhales and exhales. Maybe you breathe your regular pace. Just find what feels good. Couple more big breaths here. Let's take one more round of breath. Feel your breath in your body. Beautiful job. On your next inhale, sit on back up. And then on the exhale, take your hands back behind you with the fingertips pointing forward. If that feels like too much for you, you can have the hands go in a different way. And then step the feet into hips distance if they're anything wider. So feet come into hips distance, hands just behind the hips. On your next inhale, can you begin to press through the hands and the feet to lift the booty up off the ground? Now maybe you just pause there. If you want to go to our full posture, we're going to go to reverse tabletop. So we're going to continue to press so the knees are stacked over the ankles and the shoulders over the wrists. So really squeeze the glutes, press the hips up. Now we'll take a couple breaths here. As you're here, maybe you look up towards the ceiling. If you want to go even further, maybe you drop the head back and allow yourself to look towards the wall behind you. Couple more big breaths. Keep squeezing the glutes. Press through the hands and the feet. Breathe deeply. Core is working here. One more big breath. If your head is all the way back, on your next inhale, slowly bring it back up. And then exhale, set the hips on down. Awesome job. Inhale, straighten the legs out in front of you now. Exhale once they get there. On your next inhale, step your right foot in towards you, and then you're going to cross it to the outside of the left leg. Exhale. Inhale, sit up super tall. Exhale, left hand wraps around the right leg. Right hand reaches out behind you. Now notice we're not setting the hand on the ground here. We're just extending it on back. Let's pause for a couple big breaths. Hug that right knee in towards your chest as you twist. Breathe deeply and continue to press the left knee down and pull the toes back towards you. Soften the jaw, allow the shoulders to relax down the back body. One more big breath. Awesome. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, unwind, straighten that right leg out. Same thing, other side. So inhale, step the left foot in. As you do so, cross it on the opposite side of that right thigh. Exhale. Inhale, sit up as tall as you can, and then exhale. Right arm wraps around the left leg, and then left hand reaches out behind you like you want to touch the wall behind you. Couple big breaths here. Maybe you look over your back thumb. Breathe deeply as you press that right knee down and pull the right toes back towards you. Gently hug that left knee in towards your chest. On your exhales, maybe you twist it just a little bit deeper. Relax your jaw. One more big breath here. Beautiful job. On your next inhale, look forward. Exhale, unwind, straighten that left leg out. Now maybe you bob the knees up and down if that feels good for you. That is our first flow. So let me recap for you if you want to continue on with that flow one more time. For the first posture on this flow, we started with a seated version of child's pose. So we stepped the feet in, we had the hands either around the lower legs or stacked on the knees and allowed the head to rest down. We paused here for a couple big breaths, and then from here we transitioned to that reverse tabletop pose. So we had those hands come back behind us, and then on an inhale, we lifted the booty up and tried to come all the way up to a tabletop. Now you had two options here. You could either keep the chin tucked in or allow the head to totally drape on back. Again, pause for a couple big breaths, and then we came on out of it. Our final posture in this flow was our seated twisted posture. So we stepped one foot into the opposite side of our straight leg and then wrapped around as we reached behind us. So we did that on each side, and that was our flow. So it was seated child's pose to reverse tabletop. From there we went to our twist on each side. So feel free to play around with that flow, find what works in your body, and I'll be here to guide you. So take your time, find what feels good. You can do all, none, or some of that flow. Wherever you decide to go, stay in contact with your breath. So allow your breath to be your guide throughout these postures. Continue to find balance and length between the inhales and exhales, and move with your breath accordingly, almost as though you're matching your pace, your canter to the inhales and exhales. Allow them to be your guide. When the breath shortens, maybe you come out of a posture a bit. Wherever you're able to breathe deeply, maybe you let yourself sink a little deeper into the poses. Allow your breath to be your guide as you flow. As you make your way through these poses, you may notice that each posture kind of has you looking in a different area on the mat. We're looking down in child's pose, we're looking behind us in that tabletop, and to each side when we twist. Today I'd like to invite you to possibly bring into your awareness maybe an area in your life where finding a new perspective may be refreshing for you. Today we are going to play around with finding new perspectives just right on our yoga mat, looking in different directions as we flow. Where in your life could a new perspective, a new way of looking at things be of benefit for you? Maybe you dedicate your flow tonight to that to sinking into finding a new perspective. Continue to breathe deeply throughout your postures to stay connected with the feeling of the breath in the body. Feel the inhales and exhales. Notice what areas of your body light up in different postures. Just let yourself feel and come to the present moment. If and when you are complete with the flow, feel free to either continue to add postures that you'd wish to take right now, or simply find a nice resting position, somewhere where you can still focus on the breath, feel the body. Take a couple moments to check in, to consciously observe where you're at right now. Taking note of any potentially recurring internal or external distractions, and giving those a gentle smile. We're not here to blot out the world within and around us. We're simply here to soak it in, to be with it, to let ourselves find a new perspective, if you will, rather than finding things that distract you annoying or a nuisance. How can you find love for them? Peace for what is. Take a couple big cleansing breaths once you complete whatever flow you're working on. And whenever you are ready to move on, if you'd like to do so, we'll meet up in child's pose. So make your way eventually to hands and knees, normal tabletop position, and then eventually towards child's pose. So big toes touch, knees spread wide, and sink the hips back behind you. Again, take your time. You can meet up there only when you're ready. Once you get there, take a couple big breaths, breathing through the back body. Maybe you even rock the hips side to side. And whenever your next inhale arises, gently make your way up to hands and knees, tabletop position. Once you get to tabletop, make sure the knees are hips distance, the wrists are directly under the shoulders. This is the first posture in our next flow. We'll move through some cat-cows. So on your next inhale, drop the belly down, pull the heart up, look towards the ceiling. Exhale, round, send your gaze to the knees, thighs, or belly button. Couple more rounds. Inhale, belly draws down as the heart pulls through, look up. Exhale, round, and pay attention to where your eyes go. So look either towards the knees, thighs, or belly button. Inhale, belly pulls down, look up. Exhale, round, really press the ground away, lift through the shoulder blades. Let's do one more round together. Inhale, belly pulls down as the gaze goes up. Exhale, round, press through the hands and the knees. Inhale, back to neutral, and then exhale, child's pose. So big toes touch, knees spread wide, sink the hips back to the heels, and drape your body down. Pause for a couple big breaths. If you want to massage your third eye or the forehead into the mat, maybe you gently rock the head side to side. Breathe deeply. Let's take one more big breath here. Great job. On your next inhale, come back up, tabletop position, hands and knees. And then on your exhale, we're gonna lift the torso up. So we're gonna keep the hips stacked over the knees, and we're standing on our knees here. Once you get here, curl your toes on back behind you. We're gonna do some work in camel pose next. So to start, bring your hands to your hips. You have two options. Thumbs can press in towards the low back, the sacrum, or fingertips face down with the heels of the hands pressing in. Either way, our goal is to keep the elbows squeezing in towards each other as we flow. Okay, take a look down, make sure the knees are directly under the hip points. And as we're here, we want to press the glutes forward so the hips stay stacked over the knees rather than leaning back like that. All right, so find your hand position. On your next inhale, can you lift the torso up like you want to lift the chest away from the hip points, squeeze the elbows towards each other, and on the exhale, find a slight lean back. Glute squeeze as the hips stay stacked over the knees, look up towards the ceiling. Imagine as though you have an apple between your chin and your chest that you're trying to keep there, so the chin gently hugs in. Couple more big breaths here. Breathe deeply. Let's take two more. One more breath. Inhale, come on up. Exhale, uncurl your toes, sit back on the heels, hands come to the thighs. Take a couple big breaths here. As you do so, draw the low belly in towards the spine. That'll create some space in the low back, the sacrum. Breathe all the way to the low back. So if that felt like enough for you with looking up towards the ceiling, for the next round, you're gonna stay there and do exactly that. Just like in that reverse tabletop, we're gonna have the option to allow the head to drape back on this next one. On your next inhale, come on up, hips over the knees and curl the toes behind you. Hands come to the hips, exhale. Inhale, lift the torso up, elbows squeeze towards each other. On the exhale, lean on back. This time, again, option to let the chin go up towards the sky and to look towards the wall behind you. Continue to squeeze the glutes, hips press over the knees, low belly sucks in as well. Couple big breaths. Again, you can always come back to hugging the chin in towards the chest. Let's take two more big breaths. One more breath. On your inhale, if your head is back, gently lift up. On an exhale, uncurl the toes, sit the hips back down towards the heels. Again, pause for a couple big breaths. Notice how you feel. Any sensations within the head space. Relax your jaw, low belly pulls in. Breathe to the low back. Two more really big breaths here. Send your breath all the way to the sacrum, the low back. Awesome. Once you feel like your low back has settled a bit, on an inhale, scoot your hips over to one side, and then exhale, swing your legs out and around in front of you. We're going to conclude this flow with a nice forward fold to really open up the back body. So inhale, sit up nice and tall once you get there. Exhale, walk the hands down alongside the legs. On your next inhale, can you really pull the heart forward, lengthen the back body, and then exhale, maybe the elbows lower towards the mat, maybe not, that's okay. Continue to press the knees down, pull the toes back towards you as you pause for a couple big breaths. Relax your shoulders, soften your jaw as much as you can. Again, notice what you're looking at. Maybe you look at the legs, maybe you send your gaze towards the big toes. Find somewhere for your drishti or gazing point. When the eyes are more focused on a point in space, the mind can be a bit more focused as well. Rather than thinking and allowing the eyes to just kind of drift wherever they may be, having a point of focus allows our mind to be more focused as well and more present. Breathe through the back body, take a couple more big breaths. Again, notice where you're looking, find a point to look at. Let's take one more big breath here. Beautiful. On your next inhale, walk your hands back up towards you. Exhale once you get to the top. So I'll recap for you the flow that we just did if you want to continue on with that. So for the first part of this flow, we moved through cat-cow. So we came up to tabletop position, hands and knees, and moved through a couple rounds. Again, as you flow, pay attention to where you're looking. Inhale as you look up. Exhale, knees, thighs, or belly button. Do as many rounds as feel it's good for you. And then once you're concluded with the cat-cows, make your way to a nice child's pose.
Maybe you let the head rock side to side, massaging the third eye, the forehead. Pause for a couple breaths. From here, we made our way to our camel poses. So we did 2 camel poses. You could always do more or less. We came on up to our knees, curled the toes under behind us. For the first one, we simply lifted the heart and then looked up towards the ceiling. For the second one, so then we paused and rest. For the second one, we possibly allowed the head to drape backwards. So again, just finding new points to look at in the room. We eventually set those hips back down. Again, we took a break in between each one and then allowed the legs to come out in front of us for a nice forward fold to really breathe space into that low back. So again, for that flow, it was the cat-cows to then a rest in child's pose. From there, we did 2 versions of camel pose with a break in between each, and then ended in a forward fold. So feel free to try that out if you'd like to do that again on your own. Wherever you go, stay with the breath. Just find what feels good in your body this evening, and I'll be here to guide your awareness. Take your time and just flow to what feels good. As you breathe, continue to feel the breath ripple in and out of your body. More important than any of the poses is establishing your connection to the body through the breath. The poses are just a means to find your way towards the breath. When we twist our bodies in different ways and move in different directions, it can cause our mind to go astray. Can you find your way back to the breath? As you flow, notice where you are visually looking. Just become aware. Maybe you hone in your focus, your practice, by finding gazing points. Looking towards the toes, looking towards a space on the wall. Find what works for you. Again, notice what you're thinking about throughout your flows. If you were to try to pinpoint the thought processing that was going on right now in your mind, what are you thinking about? Where's your mind right now? Is it on the sequence of postures? Is it out of your room? Is it taking you to a different space and time? Or are you feeling the breath in the body? Just become aware, notice. If and when you're ready to come back, simply find your way to feeling the breaths, to feeling your body, to being here and now. This morning I was walking my dogs, and there was a loud noise going off, and one of my dogs was getting quite spooked, and he began to get very anxious, and he was pulling as we were walking, and a thought kind of came to me, which was quite interesting, because I kept telling him, "Chief, it's okay, nothing's gonna happen," because I knew where that noise was coming from, but he didn't. And as we were walking and he was getting anxious, nothing was happening, but I knew everything was going to be okay. I thought to myself, this must be what it's like when other people or superior beings, whatever you want to look at it, look on somebody who might be feeling anxious, might be feeling negative emotions, when the outside perspective knows that everything's going to be okay, whether you want to call that God, the universe, life energy, or just a friend in the rooms looking at you while you're flowing throughout your yoga, and the mind's racing, but outside looking in, everything's fine. Right now,
You're on your mat, you're practicing yoga. Your mind may be taking you everywhere else, but if you could almost extract yourself, pull yourself out of your body and imagine yourself watching yourself. Right now, all you're doing is practicing yoga and everything's perfectly fine. Can you take an outside perspective? Draw yourself, maybe even imagine that you're drawing yourself out of your body, watching yourself from an outside perspective. Right now, you're on your mat, you're in your practice, and everything's okay. The mind may take you to the future and the past and imaginary scenarios in between. But right now, everything's fine. Just like when I was walking my dog, I knew everything was going to be okay, but he took himself to a different world. He took himself to this anxious place where his well-being was threatened. We tend to do that to ourselves, and when we practice yoga, we can become aware of it. So as you flow, as you're finding different perspectives, looking around the room, the space around you, how can you just let yourself be? Truly absorb yourself into what you're doing right now, the task at hand, because any outsider looking in just sees you practicing yoga. Can you embody that fully right now? Breathe deeply. Let yourself just be. Let yourself feel your body in the poses and let everything else go. Because right now, the moment is perfect. You're doing exactly what you're meant to be doing because you're here right now. If you've completed your flow, maybe you take a couple moments to simply rest, to feel the breath, to notice your mind and your body. And we're not here to judge ourselves or beat ourselves up over where the mind goes. The mind is like a computer always running, it's always processing. We're here to become aware and to realize those thoughts that are taking us out of here and now and our well-being in this space. To become aware and to bring ourselves back to the home within our bodies, within ourselves. Whenever you are ready to move on to our final flow of class tonight, we'll meet up in child's pose once again. So maybe you take a couple postures along your way, maybe you wrap up whatever you're doing within your flow right now, but we'll eventually make our way to a nice child's pose once again.
Once you get to child's pose, take some big breaths, breathe through the back body. Again, just notice how you're feeling, where your mind is. How can you find love for exactly where you are right now? Where your mind is at, what your body's capable of doing, where your life is. How can you find a refreshed perspective on maybe those areas of life that weigh you down? There's always many ways to look at any scenario. Today we're exploring new perspectives, breathing into that. So for our final flow, we are going to work into very, very gentle versions of an inversion, which is probably the ultimate new perspective, is flipping ourselves upside down. But I'd like to invite you to, as we explore this, to only go, as I mentioned at the beginning of class, to where it feels okay in your body. By no means are you meant to push yourself beyond what you want to do tonight. Whenever your next inhale arises, gently lift your head up and take a look in front of you. So we're going to clasp our hands in front of us. We're going to work towards versions of headstands. Again, by no means are you meant to press up to headstand tonight. So you're going to clasp your hands, interlacing the fingers like that. But as you do so, your pinky fingers are going to be one in front of another. So if you can see from there, I don't have one on the bottom. One's in front of another, so both my hands are flat on the ground. Thumbs are up in the air. Now as you're here, Bring your head forward and then tuck your chin in, and you can watch me. Actually, let's come on down. Let's do one more thing before we do that. Before we even clasp the hands, bring your hands around your upper arm. So right above your elbows, that's the distance that you want your forearms and elbows to be. From there, flare the hands out, clasp them, both pinkies on the ground. So that's as wide as you want your elbows for this. Then lift the hips up, head comes up, tuck the chin in towards the chest, and then place the top of your head down on the ground. So pause here, top of the head on the ground. Now you want the heels of the hands, so the base of your hands, to be pressing in towards the skull. So if you need to inch your head forward, you want contact between the base of the hands, not the clasped fingers, the base of the hands and the skull, the back of your head, the cranium. So if this is enough for you, you are going to stay right as you are. You are perfect. If you want to take this one step further, again, you can watch before you attempt. You're going to curl your toes under behind you, and then on an inhale, possibly lift the knees up on the ground. Now again, this is totally fine. I'm going to step my feet back to show you. If your feet are further behind you, you could stay here. Now as you're here, you're really going to drive the forearms and the elbows down into the mat and pull the shoulder blades down your back body, so towards your booty. If you want to take this one step further, we're going to add some movement into this flow. So on your inhale, maybe you tippy-toe the feet towards your head. On an exhale, you walk them back. And it might just be one step, it might be a half a step. Let's do that 2 more times. So inhale, tippy-toe forward. Exhale, back. Again, you can stay still, or in any of those previous versions, maybe one more time. Inhale, tippy-toe on forward. Exhale, walk it on back. Once you get to the back of your exhale, drop the knees down and then let yourself lay on down. So belly comes down to the mat, stack your hands one on top of another, and rest your left cheek down on your hands. Let's take some big breaths here. Breathe deeply. Notice how that felt for you. If you had any discomfort in your neck, anywhere in your body, then maybe you just pause at one of the initial versions. That is totally fine. We're here to meet ourselves where we're at today. All right. On your next inhale, gently peel yourself on up. We're going to do that one more time. So lift yourself on up. Maybe you come to a version of child's pose. Once you get there, again, wrap your hands around opposite upper arms to determine the length of the elbows, their distance from each other. Hands reach out in front of you, then you clasp them, pinkies on the ground, thumbs up in the air. Big inhale, lift the hips up. Exhale, tuck the chin in towards the chest, top of the head goes down. The head presses into the heels of the hands, so the base of the thumbs press against the back of the head. Again, if this is enough, you stay right here. This is beautiful for a flip perspective. If you want to go a little bit further, curl the toes under, and on an inhale, lift the knees up off the ground. Exhale. If you want to add the flowing, moving meditation, 3 times, inhale, walk those toes towards you. Exhale, walk them back. Press the elbows and the forearms down into the mat. Inhale, walk forward. Exhale, walk back. Once more, if you got it in ya, inhale, forward. Exhale, back. Lay yourself all the way down, so set those knees down. Let the belly come forward onto the mat. Stack the palms, and then right cheek rests on the hand. So we're giving our necks a little break as we rest, looking side to side, resting our head on the hands. Take a couple big breaths. Notice how you feel. Maybe a lot having the head below the hips, so breathe deeply through the body. If that was enough for you, you can totally stay resting on your hands or do any of the versions that we just did. Again, listen to where your body wants to be tonight and only go to where it feels good for you. If you want to join me for our final version, we're going to make our way to walking up and holding, just keeping the feet kind of closer to the head, possibly if it's in your practice, coming all the way up. So on your next inhale, lift yourself on up, hands and knees, tabletop position. Maybe sink those hips on back, child's pose. Again, wrap the hands around opposite elbows, upper arms, find your distance. Hands reach out in front of you, clasp them, pinkies on the ground. thumbs up. All right, inhale, hips lift up, chin in towards chest, top of the head on the mat. And before we even lift the knees, really press the elbows down to the mat. You'll feel the shoulders lift up and away from the head. Pause here again. You can totally stop here. This is awesome. If you want to go a little bit further, toes curl under. Inhale, knees lift up as the hips go up towards the ceiling. Maybe you stay here and pause for a couple breaths, really pressing the elbows, the forearms down into the mat. Exhale, make sure you're breathing here. On your next inhale, if you want to go even further, maybe you start to tippy-toe the toes in towards you. Maybe you pause here, really trying to lift the hips up towards the sky. If you want to take it one step further, and this is only if it's in your practice, maybe you bend one knee, kicking one heel towards your booty. Maybe you let it come down and do the same on the other side. Maybe both come up off the ground. Maybe you make your way all the way up to headstand again. That's only if it's in your practice. We're not trying to do anything wild today. So find where this works in your body, in your practice. Whenever you're ready to come on out, you'll just slowly step the feet on back, knees to the ground. And this time we're going to go to child's pose, keeping the forehead on the mat. So take your time. If and when you're ready to come out, forehead to the mat, reach those hands out in front of you, child's pose. If you so choose, the hands can even come by your sides with the palms face up for a nice release of the shoulders as well. Take a couple of big breaths, pause here, allow the neck, the back, the shoulders to neutralize. Breathe deeply through the body. All right, as you're here, feel free to just stay as you are and listen to my voice, or you can prop your head up and take a look at me on the screen. I will do a recap for you just to show you what we went through one more time. Again, if you're done with that and you're like, no more headstand for me, that's totally fine as well. You can do whatever you want for the next bit of class. If you do want to try those headstand variations again, we started this flow with walking the feet up and back. So we measured our distance by bringing the hands around the opposite arms. We splayed the hands out, clasped them, both pinkies on the ground, thumbs up in the air like you want to go into a little thumb war. From there we came forward, tucked the chin in towards the chest, head came down to the ground. Now this was a perfect place to stop and just start here. This is awesome. You press the forearms into the mat, shoulders lift up away from the ears, head is light as you're here. If you wanted to take it one step further, the full version of this flow was lifting the knees, the booty up off the ground. On inhales, we walk the toes forward. On exhales, we walk them back. We did 3 rounds, coming forward and then back, and then we came to rest on our bellies. So we inch ourselves forward, rest one cheek down on our palms, and waited for the neck to neutralize, breathing deeply. So we did that flow 2 times through, then resting the other cheek on the mat. For the final one, if you wanted to proceed, you had the option to make your way towards holding the feet towards closer to the face. So allowing the head to come back down towards the mat. Maybe you walked your feet forward, paused with the toes close to the face. Maybe you worked on kicking one foot up. Maybe the other foot came in. Maybe they both came in. Maybe you made your way all the way up to headstand. So you can play around with that. Whenever you're done with that last one, please, please, please spend some time in child's pose with the hands either extended or by your sides. We really want to allow the neck to neutralize before any movement after a posture such as this. So again, it was the walking up and down, then resting with each cheek on the ground, and then from there, possibly holding the a modified or full variation of the pose, and then child's pose. So that was a lot of talk and a lot of instruction. Just want to make sure you're getting into the posture safely and listening to your body. So feel free to continue on with that, to explore it. Please don't overextend yourself. Listen to your body. Stay with your breath. I'll be here to guide your awareness as always, but have some fun with this last flow. Again, though we're throwing in an inversion into the mix, our primary goal is to stay connected within. So find your way back to your breath before proceeding. Follow your inhales and your exhales. Move with your inner space, inner breath.
If you are proceeding with this flow, please just feel your body. Rather than filling your mind with the thoughts of what this pose needs to look like, the space that you need to get to, kicking your feet up, whatever it is, just let yourself feel and stop where you feel like that's all my body wants right now. And breathe into it. So usually we can gauge how far we should go by connecting with the breath. When we no longer feel connected to the breath or we forget about the breath, then we've usually gone a little bit past our point. So stay connected within. Only go to the point where you can continue to breathe. You can continue to feel the breath in the body. And throughout all these poses, yet again, notice where you're looking, where your eyes are looking, if they're out looking at a certain point or just generally looking outwards. Maybe you find a point to focus on within each of your postures, whether that's focusing the eyes inwards with the eyes closed or finding a point externally from you to focus on. Continue to breathe deeply and stay connected to your breath and body. And as we flow, we may notice that finding a new perspective may feel awkward. It may feel weird. It may not feel right in the body, especially when it comes to inverting ourselves. But sometimes in life, when we're set in our ways, finding a new perspective can feel that way. We can resist it. It may feel wrong. It may not feel like something we even want to attempt. But sometimes finding that new perspective, just like flipping upside down, can be refreshing. We allow the blood to come back to the head, new space, new energy within. So breathing into that refreshing nature. Maybe you tried something new, found something fun. If you're still flowing, please take all the time you need. If and when you're ready to proceed to the closing of class, we will eventually meet up laying down on our back bodies. So take your time, continue to flow, continue to give yourself whatever stretches you need. Within the next few moments or so, we'll eventually meet up laying on our backs, but that's only if and when you're ready. Once you find your way to resting on your back body, take a couple moments, draw the eyes closed, and breathe. Notice what's going on right now. Again, those internal, those external distractions. Are they causing you annoyance, or are you able to be with them? Just know that your inner and external world right now is exactly as it should be. When we want it to be different is when we cause frustration. So how can you flip your perspective? How can you just love the moment within and around you for what it is right now? This moment is unique. It's one of a kind. How can you soak it in and just enjoy it? For it may or may not ever happen again. We'll have a couple more opportunities for a flip perspective, if you will, with our closing sequence. If you're all done and you're ready to rest, feel free to just take whatever postures that you'd like to take. If you want to join me for our last few closing postures, for our next posture, we'll move through Viparita Karani, maybe shoulder stand again, totally your choice if you want to move on. If you want to move towards Viparita Karani, On your inhale, if your legs are straight out in front of you, you'll gently bend the knees and then bring the feet in towards you. So the knees are going to be stacked directly over the hip points. The feet are just going to be hanging in space. Hands can be by your sides, they can be on your bellies. This is stage 1 of Viparita Karani. If this feels good for you, you're going to stay exactly as you are. Viparita Karani is a very restorative and relaxing pose, so stop somewhere that feels like minimal effort to be in, if you will. If you want to go a little bit further, you'll begin to lift the feet up. Maybe you eventually stack the ankles over the hips, toes pointing up towards the ceiling. If this feels good for you and it feels like not a lot of work to stay here, then you'll stay exactly as you are. Maybe you find a point in between. So take a couple moments, breathe deeply. If your feet are lifted all the way, look towards your toes. If the knees are bent, look towards the knees. Take a couple moments to take some big breaths here. Again, we're flipping the body, feet over the hips, so we're allowing for renewed energy flow within the body. Now, if you want to take this one step further, maybe you work towards shoulder stand. If you want to work towards shoulder stand, if it's in your practice, on an inhale, you'll rock the hips forward, and maybe you simply just grab a hold of the booty or the hips, and you pause here. If you want to work a little further into shoulder stand, you'll begin to use the strength of your core to point the toes up towards the ceiling and really grab a hold of the hips, maybe inching the shoulders towards each other, pointing the toes up towards the ceiling. So if this is something that you want to do right now, maybe you make your way there. If not, maybe you find a more moderate version somewhere in between. Find what works in your body and feels okay right now. That may simply be Viparita Karani. So take a couple moments, explore, find what works for you. Again, breathe deeply. Whenever you are ready to come out of your shoulder stand, slowly lower down one vertebra at a time. Make your way back to Viparita Karani. Whenever you get to Viparita Karani, you'll bend the knees, let the heels come back in towards the booty, and eventually set both the feet down towards the ground, feet hips distance. We'll move to fish pose, our final flip perspective here. So once you come out of shoulder stand, grab a hold of the outsides of your hips. The elbows will press down towards the mat. On an inhale, lift your whole torso up off the ground, and then exhale, drape your head back. Slowly lower yourself back down to the crown of the head, and as you do so, you'll find an arc in the torso, so the belly's gonna pull up towards the ceiling. Pause here for a couple big breaths. Breathe deeply. Again, maybe you look towards the mat underneath your head, maybe you look towards the wall behind you. Couple more big breaths. Whenever you're ready to come on out of fish pose, gently lower yourself back down towards the ground. Pause for a couple moments. Allow the neck to neutralize. Breathe deeply. Maybe you eventually kind of sway the head side to side, dropping one ear down at a time. If there's any final postures you'd like to take before Shavasana, feel free to do so. If you want to throw in a happy baby, butterfly legs, if you just want to give yourself a nice hug in Apanasana, knees to chest pose and rock side to side, find what feels good for you before we make our way all the way to Shavasana. Stay with the breath in the body. And only when you're ready, make your way all the way to resting on your back body. So extend those limbs out, hands by your sides, feet extended. And once you make your way to your final resting posture, gently allow the eyes to draw closed. Take a couple of moments to release the conscious hold of your breath. Allow your body to breathe itself naturally. And begin to invite in a soft and easy, a relaxed nature to your mind, to your body, to the space all around and within you. Begin to relax your body even further, starting by softening the crown of your head. Relax your forehead, your eyebrows. Soften the eyelids as you allow the eyes to sink back towards the skull. Relax your temples and the cheekbones. Soften your jaw. Relax your lips. Soften the teeth. And gently float your tongue down away from the roof of your mouth. Allow your ears to soften as the back of your head melts towards the ground beneath you. Relax your scalp. Soften the back of the neck, the sides and the front, opening the throat. Melt the shoulder blades towards the ground as you relax the upper arms and the elbows. Soften the lower arms and the wrists. Relax the palms. Soften the back of your hands. Allow your fingers to naturally curl inwards. Soften your chest, the space around your heart. Relax the rib cage and the belly. Melt the back body towards the ground beneath you, working one vertebra at a time down the spine, softening the muscles as you pass. As you get to the base of the spine, soften the low back, the sacrum. Relax your glutes, the hips, soften the pelvic area. Relax the upper legs and the knees. Soften the lower legs and the ankles. Relax the tops of your feet. Soften your heels, the arches, the balls of the toes. Eventually allowing every toe to get a little bit lighter. Notice if you're holding on anywhere else in your body, and just let everything go. Allow this inner state of openness, of ease, of surrendering to translate to your mind, relaxing the mind as though it's a muscle itself, letting it melt and fade away. Take a moment and with your awareness, imagine as though you can take a step out of your body. Can you visualize that you are outside your body looking at yourself laying on your mat? From the outside perspective, what do you see? Do you see this calm, relaxed body resting on the earth? That's all that's happening right now is what you see. Allow your mind to match that outside perspective, to see that you are perfect right now as you are, that you're calm, resting on your mat, just allowing your body to soak in the goodness of your practice. Let yourself be what your body is doing right now. For the next couple of moments, invite your awareness back into the body and just let yourself drift away. Sink into the goodness of where your body is right now and what's happening in this moment. Gently begin to invite the awareness back in towards your body. Maybe you deepen the breath or add small wiggles to your toes and fingers, the wrists and ankles. Only when you feel ready, gently roll over to either side and pause there to rest in a fetal position. Take all the time you need. Again, only when you're ready to move, gently make your way all the way up to seated, keeping the eyes softly closed as you transition. We'll eventually meet up with the eyes closed and palms touching at heart center. Again, move slowly, take your time. Once you make your way towards seated, take a couple moments to become consciously aware of how you feel. Draw your awareness to your mind, your headspace. Observe the qualities, the texture of the mind. What's the first word that comes to you to describe the state of your mind right now? And gently draw your awareness to your body. Allow your mind to sink towards the body and just notice how it feels. What's the first word that comes to your awareness to describe the state of your body? Eventually, tune into your emotional well-being. What emotion do you feel right now? Just notice, observe, let it be. You're perfect just as you are right now. Give yourself a gentle smile and truly thank yourself. Express gratitude for showing up this evening, for dedicating your time to your health, your life, and your well-being. And thank you so very much for sharing your beautiful energy and practice with me and everybody else who showed up here tonight. The light in me truly honors the light in you. Namaste.